my talk. Here we go. How he said he living life as a gringo, where you question where you fit in every time you mingle. They say you do this with not enough that. My rapping is really bad. This life as a gringo.
Yes, hello and welcome to another episode of Life as a Gringo. My name is Dramos. Of course, it is Thursday, so it means it's time for our Thursday Trends episode. And my guest this week, helping me break it all down, he is a filmmaker and the founder of Self-Hype Coaching. My guy, Eli Vazquez. How you feeling, my bro?
Hey, what's up, my man? Like I said, I am so happy to see you flexing all this beautiful Puerto Rican flags. We were talking about it before the call.
Yeah.
I'm in white Seattle. I'm sorry for the listeners that are like, hey, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm in Seattle.
Yeah.
There's not enough of us. So I get excited every time I see that flag, but love being back, man. Thank you for having me, brother. Appreciate it.
Of course, man. It's funny. Seattle is actually one of the top listened cities for this podcast, ironically. So I think, the Puerto Ricans are probably hidden somewhere within Seattle. You guys just got to come together and connect.
Yeah, exactly. Don't come for me, please. Because like, if anything, give me the restaurants and the spots. Because I moved here like 6 months ago. So like, bless me, please. Let's connect. I need you.
Yeah, please put this man on. Let him get acquainted with his new city. But man, we'll touch base on all that you got going on. I know that you're always working on a million and one different things. But first and foremost, man, we gotta dive into some of these trending stories from this last week. I mean, we had a really interesting conversation with John Leguizamo as he premiered his new show on MSNBC. The topic of LatinX, and he had a variety of opinions, and generations kind of discussing it on the show. So we'll get your take on that. There's also this article from wearemetoo.com talking about religion in the Latin community and how you are seeing, I guess this younger generation sort of pivot away from traditional religious, religious behaviors or being affiliated with a religion in general. So we'll kind of talk a bit about that because I feel like it probably represents mine and your generation as well. And then, man, I had seen you post about this on Instagram. We'll talk about Fox News settling this defamation lawsuit with Dominion. And yeah, there's a lot of feelings about this thing, this settlement happening right before the trial was set to begin. So we'll get your take on that. And then on a positive side of things, man, you had SNL with Ana de Armas and Karol G as the focal points, and also a little honorable mention, Coachella as well. You had Bad Bunny as the first Latin speaking, or Spanish speaking, I should say, headliner over there, as well as a lot of Latin representation. So we'll get into all of that. But first and foremost, man, let's kind of start with some of the sort of heavier topics of conversation. And we'll do a deep dive in a segment we call For the People in the Back.
Say it louder for the people in the back. Say it louder for the people in the back.
All right, so let's start first and foremost with this topic of the word LatinX, right? It has become a bit of a controversial term, to say the least, amongst our community. John Leguizamo tackled this, like I said, on his new show that he has with MSNBC, which, first and foremost, shout out to him. I think it's incredible that he has a platform on a major network like that, where the purpose of it is to really dive into Latin culture and explore that. So beautiful, beautiful stuff, for him creating that, as well as MSNBC for, giving him the platform to do so. But like I said, he talked about this term Latinx, and in the show, he says, quote, "I don't know why Latinx is controversial, but it's controversial. People get very angry about it. To me, it's ridiculous. The mere fact that we have a name and we check a box is huge. I mean, I know none of us want to be checking boxes. None of us want to constantly be talking about race, but you have to, because otherwise you get excluded. Your communities don't get funded. Your schools don't get funded unless you check that box and vote. You know what I mean? But I love LatinX." So he's talking about this term Latinx and how it's kind of this catch-all for Latinos as a whole, but also gender binary, all of these different things. What is your take first and foremost on the term Latinx? Are you using it? Are you against it? What's kind of been your whole thought process with this?
Yeah, man. Okay. Well, I want to first off give all my love to John Leguizamo. I grew up watching this man. I don't think he gets enough like credit in general. I think he's one of the goats in acting. 90s films, like dude, first movie I ever cried was watching Moulin Rouge. I'm not ashamed to say it. But John Leguizamo's fire in that, and then the Romeo and Juliet when he had the gun.
Yeah, that amazing.
Like, I always said as a filmmaker that, you know, how Quentin Tarantino always has Samuel L. Jackson in all his movies.
Yeah.
If I made it, got to that level, John Leguizamo was going to be in all my films and stuff past. But I just had to say that. Hopefully he hears that. But I'm manifesting that. But yes, that is a controversial topic. Like, I used to work at Better Like, which is BuzzFeed's Latinx brand, and I was the guy that dove into these conversation pieces. And what I did was, for one video, I brought 6 Latinos from see, I'm saying Latino, but like Latinx community people. And one side was pro and other one was against the work. And we just chopped it up and had a conversation with different perspectives and things like that. And, you know, you want to be able to create these conversation pieces, especially online, you know, have it a little more unfiltered. And the comments were nuts. Like, people were going in. It was like Cardi B's comment section on her Instagram. People were throwing, fighting, throwing shade, going back and forth. And it shows how controversial this topic is. And my whole thing is like, listen, so like, we are a product. Our community in itself is a product of adaptation, of transformation, of out of necessity, of survival. And just with the changing of times, like just like everything shifts and changes. So like, older generations and more traditional side, and this is a big product of us, is our tradition, and we love so much, and we hold on to it so deeply. So it's like, it's not like I don't get it, you know, and how it doesn't transfer over to the Spanish language. It's also ruffles feathers. Like, so I understand why people have an issue with it, but also, just like us in our community, we have to have these conversation pieces and keep adapting and changing. And I love Latinx for what it represents of that transformation, of that adaptation. It may not be the concrete word. Maybe it will shift. Maybe it will change. But guess what? We are moving forward with the times and being included. So the intentionality is something that is progressive and amazing to hear. And I think I say Latino just innately because it's in me. But when I'm really referring to the whole community diaspora, I say Latinx. I try to be inclusive with that, or Latinx. So that's another word people are saying too. But I love the conversation piece. I love that word. It's like colorism in the community. It's necessary conversations. So it's like, if we're not having these conversations, that's a problem. It being 2023. So I love that it even exists. I love that it's making people talk about it. And yeah, it's a constant progression of our tradition that we hold so deeply. But we can still create new tradition and adapt that tradition, and never forget where we came from, and honor that, still progress and move forward. That's my main set of thinking about it.
No, I think you and I are kind of on exactly the same page with that, you know, where I love what it represents as far as the progression of our culture, especially, you know, when you talk about the history of just really toxic sort of machismo culture that has existed within, you know, our community. And, you know, much of the anti-LGBTQ plus, you know, rhetoric that has happened, you know, be it, you know, those who identify as gay or trans, you know, it's a real issue. You know what I mean? We've seen a lot of hate crimes against people who are from those communities, you know, within our countries and you know, places that we exist. And this is a great sort of step forward, regardless if it sort of sticks forever and becomes the norm. It is, I think, a great progression of sort of a toxic past to a degree, you know, if we're calling it what it is. And you know, I think, you know, to your point as well, you know, when you I think I first and foremost just don't understand the anger that comes up from the usage of it. That part, I find it hard to understand that. And I've even had people get mad at me for using the word Latino, but not because it wasn't inclusive, but because they preferred Hispanic. You know, and to me, Hispanic is like, that was given to us by the United States of America by white people. You know what I mean? That's the one you want to claim, you know, but, you know, I think it is, people tend to, you know, sort of identify or, you know, tie their identity to really random sort of things, you know, and when you try and progress or push past it, people feel like you're actually coming for them in their own livelihood, right? And I think we're seeing that in various ways within this country in general. But yeah, it is really interesting to me, like how people get so charged up about this term, even just being introduced or being discussed as a whole. That's what's wild to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, it's you hit the nail on the head with like, there's so many different terminology. Hispanic, I wasn't even thinking of that. I don't even use this. I don't even remember ever using Hispanic.
Yeah,
but like, and sometimes it's depending on where you live. Like, there's Mexicans in Texas that I'm like, I'm Texan.
Right.
I was in Texas. And I'm like, no, I'm not Mexican, Eli. I'm Texan. Right. Like, that's beyond me. But hey, that's your culture, boo boo. I get it.
Sure.
My big thing is like, as long as we stay together as a community, like, okay, Latinx, Hispanic, Texan, Tejas, whatever it is, like when it's called to arms time and there's legislation or something for the community, as long as we stay together, and it's not like, oh, you say Latinx, so I'm good.
Yeah,
like that's the big thing I care about, is like, I hope these words don't split us, because it's already hard enough with the colorism, what country you're from, what generation you are, if you're an Osabo kid, and there's already so much to divide us. Like, as long as we stay together, like respect, okay, X, A, O, whatever, as long as we moving forward together as a community, that's why I hope that people listen to and care about it.
Yeah. And I agree, I think, because he touches also on that when you talk about checking boxes, right? Because the census was another thing that came up kind of recently, where they were, talking about having you be able to identify as Latino as a race, right? And a lot of people felt some sort of way about that, at the end of the day. And, to me, it's like we keep having these arguments and missing the bigger picture, I think, is what's happening. And particularly, I'm speaking of those of us who live in the United States of America, because it's far more complicated here than where we're from natively. You know what I mean? Sure, if you live in Colombia, you are Colombian. You know what I mean? And that, I understand that. But here in the U.S., whether it's right or it's wrong, we are all lumped in together as far as the bigger machine, right? And I think that's what we kind of have to understand, is that by acknowledging this, it doesn't take away our own personal culture, our attachment to our ancestry, but this is a way for all of us to kind of band together and collectively use our power for good, because regardless if we want it or not, we are still going to be lumped together, as one thing by the bigger machine. I think a lot of people are kind of missing that point. And when we begin to differentiate ourselves so much and, I don't have anything in common with people who are Mexican or this and that, we're just missing the larger conversation. And like he's saying, we are going to get left out of the conversation if we're not there to check a particular box, and also, it's like there are, a lot of people who have arguments about colorism, or what does it mean to be a person of color, right? And it's like, at the end of the day, I might, physically have more European features, due to my ancestry in Puerto Rico, but I also don't have the full white experience in the United States of America. So like, me checking the white box doesn't fit in with me and the experience I have on a regular basis in this country. So like, again, why are we trying to have these divisive conversations? And like, it goes into elitism. It goes into the one drop rule type of stuff, whether we realize it or not. And we're literally just doing the work of the original kind of colonists at the end of the day. This is exactly what they wanted.
Man, we could go in on. We could do a whole hour just because you got me all fired up. Because I'm like, you're hitting the nail on the head, man. Like, we are literally doing what they want us to do. They want us to squabble. They want us to fight. They want us to be divisive. They want us to like. The more we are pointing fingers at each other, that's less fingers pointed at them, which is that. And that's the scariest thought for them, is to be like, yo, they all come together and be like, yo, we're all country. Let's all because we have some serious stakes. Leguizamo hits on that all the time. Is like, in Hollywood, the purchasing power in Hollywood, the number of music industry, which we're going to talk about a little later. It's like, it's reflective. So, man, if we all come together in terms of like socially and progressively, like how can we stake claim in different sectors other than entertainment?
Right.
Golly, like that is the scariest thing you can do. So if you are listening to this, because people are listening to this and be like, that's not me.
Right.
But I'm like, everyone has a little something where they're just like, I'm not saying you got to go to Dave and Buster's with these people, but I'm saying the moment's right. You guys are arm in arms, checking the boxes together, like going forward together. That's all. Yeah. That's all it really is at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And last thing I'll say, I touched on this a few weeks ago, but like, they did a study talking about like the GDP of the Latin community in the United States alone. And like our buying power is larger than many developed countries in this world, just US, Latinos. And it's like, we're not taking advantage of that. Like, Hollywood should be bowing down to us at this point. You know what I mean? Like if we really collectively came together and supported one another's creative works and each other's causes and businesses, like they would have no choice but to include us in every single conversation and give us a real seat at the table. But again, it's these stupid little side conversations that happen that keep us from really, walking into our full power in this country.
Yeah, that's the big thing is like the age-old quote of like change starts from the bottom up, not from the top down. And that's the hard thing of like, but we make all this money and we do all these things. I'm like, we could do these opportunities, but I'm just going to make another Fast and Furious movie for you guys. And I know you guys are going to buy that and watch that. It's not really going to progress the culture at all, but you guys will buy it and watch. Right. So it's like, it's really, it takes a lot of work and community efforts and things like that. And it's such a big thing. But what I do love is it's inevitable that we will change and progress and question. Yes. And what I love is us two Latino men, being able to have these conversations and to talk about this, because my dad wasn't talking about it. My grandpa definitely wasn't talking about it.
Yeah.
So there is a path to progress, and progress is always slow, especially when it comes to democracy in this country. And it's designed that way, unfortunately. But there is progress. And the fact that we're even having this conversation is so dope, because my dad was listening to Prince and trying to grab ass. So it's like, it's great that in these deeper conversations, path to progress in the generation.
Absolutely, man. I love that. It's like a perfect segue to kind of the next conversation, because we're discussing our generation. And you have this article for wearemetoo.com talking about how Latino faith in the U.S. pivots from Catholicism to two opposite extremes. And they talk about how there was a report from the Pew Research Center that found a proportion of Catholics in the U.S. Latino population is declining considerably. And they found that an estimated 35.4 million Latino adults in this country, some 19.6 identify as Catholic, so 55%. And while that figure is still significant, they're saying that the changing demographic identity is even more interesting. And the figures show that about 22% of Latinos surveyed are Protestant and 18% have no religious affiliation. And they go on to say that the center surveyed adult Latinos under the age of 50, and the shift in religious identity was evidenced in age ranges, right? So Latinos ages 18 to 29, the net shift was from Catholicism to no religious affiliation. And then amongst 30 to 49-year-olds, the movement has been away from Catholicism and more towards evangelical, Protestant, and religious non-affiliation. And they're talking about, if you compare this to the 2010 study, 67% of respondents identified themselves as Catholic. So again, you're talking about a decline of about 12% here from the last time. Now, I don't know what your religious affiliation is, but I think it definitely speaks to, I think, a changing of the guard kind of, and similar to what we've been talking about, where even when it comes to things like colorism or machismo culture, we are breaking away from a lot of the old ideas and old world ideas that no longer serve us. And part of that, I think for many, is like growing up in a very strict religious household, right? And amongst that is, anti-LGBTQ plus, rhetoric and really sort of strict ways that women are supposed to operate and conduct themselves in order to be, looked at as pure, right? And really a lot of old world ideas that, again, I think our generation is beginning to recognize no longer serve us. I mean, I'm curious your kind of thoughts, your own experiences with that as well.
Yeah, man, it's not surprising at all. Like I always say, like I have a major in being agnostic and I have a minor in Catholic guilt, because I grew up Catholic. Yeah. I grew up hella Catholic. Father Juan, I'll never forget Father Juan. I still struggle with Catholic guilt. It rains, and I think it's because I did something wrong. Right. Like it's like that Catholic guilt that happens. But it's I see that because like I was in an old school, like East Chicago, like all Mexican, Spanish, he was actually Puerto Rican, but it was all Mexican cohort, Our Lady Guadalupe, Father Juan. I didn't know what the hell he was in the English version because it was such a accent. Yeah. But my mom followed this man religiously, And he said, using any contraception is the devil. And 4 sisters later, my mom was like, financially, we can't handle this church because I keep popping out kids every single year. Father Juan said it's a sin to use birth control.
Yeah.
So now my mom is like a Superdome Christian, so that now she transitioned to that. So the fact that she transitioned, and I'm the way that I am, it's like it's and I know so many stories of other people as well where this makes sense. Where it's again, we talk about natural progression, and and that's, I think, it's a product of that. I think there's so much on this topic, and I will say right now, I don't mean to disrespect anyone if you use some Jesus and stuff, like, but do your thing, boo-boo. No problem whatsoever. Everyone needs something. I'm glad you have that. I've seen what religion can do for people, and they're all that. So it's amazing. But let's just talk about it for a second.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk about it. How the hell did Jesus come all the way down to Mexico and, make some tortas and frijoles and stuff and be like, hey, he's from the Middle East.
Right.
How does it make sense?
Yeah.
The Our Lady of Guadalupe and all that, like, you have to see it for what it is. And it's that colonization, re-education of religions, which they're still doing today, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey, throw out all the gods that you've been following for thousands of years. We don't even know how long we've been following these religions, and adopt this, out of control and all that. And again, you can still have your relationship with God, but you got to kind of look at the historical facts as well. It's like that. If your faith is strong, unwavering, amazing, adopt it. But look at the historical context of why this is here and where it came from, and out of control and of guilt and out of all those things, just to pretty much put everyone in a uniform European box.
Sure.
So it's a hard topic, but it's not, with the access of new information and social media and everything else and people questioning things, it does not it doesn't shock me at all. It doesn't. And I think, again, it's so intertwined with our culture of tradition that I think I still honor those images and all the, like, Mary and all those things. It's so intertwined with my half Mexican side and my Puerto Rican side too. But it's also like, I don't believe it. So it's like it's so interesting, like, where everything's headed. Yeah. And I know it's scary for a lot of people. It's worrisome. But I'm curious on your thoughts too. It's like, it's a very interesting topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. For me, I call myself a spiritual person rather than a religious person. I don't agree with organized religion whatsoever. And like you, I grew up in a Catholic household, and then now my parents have converted to being Christian, and they've gone down that whole sort of rabbit hole. And I mean, I think there's a lot to question. I mean, first and foremost, how is Jesus a white, blue-eyed man coming from the Middle East, right? Like, it's called the most obvious thing that we've So I mean, and to me, if that's the starting point, it's like, all right, well, how much other shit has been left out, rewritten to fit certain narratives, and there are, there's a lot, even in the Bible, it's like, parts of his life are missing, and, there's a lot, there's, moments of racism within the Bible, and I just think it's a really complicated piece of work. And I also think, for me, I think there is something of substance to it, right? I think we all should have something bigger than ourselves that we believe in. Whatever you want to call it, I think as human beings, we're innately searching for a sense of community, which is what religion gives you, a sense of sort of why you're here, a sense of purpose to a degree. And I believe in things like this for that reason. I think that is beautiful, because I think it's essential to our human existence and our own happiness, but I think for me, I more so view these stories in the Bible rather than being factual events. To me, I view them as stories to sort of guide us through life. And they're more analogies than anything else, because even, if you read like the work of Joseph Campbell, who's a really like brilliant philosopher from, back in the day, he talks about all the religions, and you see how all of them have very similar stories, different names, different practices, but all share similar stories. And they all sort of serve a purpose. It's like this hero's journey at the end of the day, right? Is like the story of Jesus and all these things. And, there's something to pull from that. But to me, believing every single bit of it as fact, blindly going against any real world thing is not healthy. And I don't think we have to, I pray at times, but I don't necessarily pray to Jesus or or God. Like, to me, you can replace those words with the universe or, whatever it might be. But I don't buy into it like my previous generations did. And yeah, I think even the colonial aspect of it, it's like, man, Africans had their own religion before they were brought over here, and they had to convert, or the idea that it was like you had to convert or we would kill you. Look at the, if we're talking about places like Puerto Rico with the Tainos, they had their own religions and they were forced to convert to the European standards, so there's that whole complicated history that doesn't allow me to buy into it wholly, and I see its purpose. I think it's relevant in certain contexts. I just don't buy into the four walls of a church itself.
Exactly. No, I love what you said. And dude, I listen to some preachers. My mom's watching it all the time on TV.
Sure.
They spit some sermons.
Yeah.
I feel motivated because you just put universe with God, and it's a very similar structure,
Absolutely.
And I love the idea of being a part of something bigger. But some people need religion or need that relationship with God. Other people find community in other ways. But
sure.
I think it's just a natural progression of society. It's a natural progression of education. It's a natural progression of, our past generations not being in survival mode and not having anything to look forward to other than religion, other than God, other than heaven after all this is over with. It's like our ancestors were slaves. Our ancestors were like peasants. Some of our families even know just a couple generations back. Like my grandfather was in potato sacks going to school in Puerto Rico. So it's like these families, all they had was this.
Right.
And the beauty of their sacrifice and the work that they've done is us being in a position to be able to question. Right. Like it's a privilege to be able to question, right? And it's like by me I'm not in this survival mode because my family has done the work. And in order for me to honor that, I am going to question. I am able to have this, do a podcast with you and be able to, be a filmmaker and do all these things. It's wild. So I love the fact that I'm in this position to be able to, what if, or what is that, and I have these conversations with my mom all the time, and she always thinks I'm trying to attack her or something. I'm just like, no, question it. And then she'll say you follow a math book, right? And I'm like, well, yeah. Like 1 + 1 = 2. Like, well, that's just like the Bible. I'm like, okay, all right, come on. That's like, a lot of it could be fan fiction, Sure. It's like we're talking math here, but I could be open to things because at the end of the day, the way I see it, the way I'm agnostic is like, there's no way for us to know.
Right.
Like we're so grandiose. All we have is just human interpretations of what life is. Yeah. And maybe God does exist, but man, there's no way we know all of it. Right. Yeah. And that's what keeps me up at night. I love like space, universe, time, and all those make me go crazy. But yeah, I think it's definitely like a product of an advanced society. And it's weird. I honestly think it's like by questioning, it's a privilege to question, and as you should, So it's like, that's a thing. But also, all these conversations shouldn't shake faith. I think you could believe in something and be like, you know what, humans are flawed, and this book has been in many human hands, as you said, for thousands of years.
Sure.
So you can't tell me one person didn't put a little white out on a page and like put like some extra sauce in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we do it all the time. They made like so many Star Wars movies and redid it. It's probably the same thing. So it's I totally understand where you're coming from with that. It's wild.
Yeah. I think, like to each his own, I think it's I think for me it's like I just don't think it should be looked at as one size fits all. This is the end all be all, right? And I also do love what you said, like it's a privilege to be able to have these conversations and to not be in survival mode and to have the clarity of mind to kind of be like, wait, well, does this really make sense for me or not? So I think that's a beautiful thing. And then even, we talk about you and I as far as like, we found a community, I'm sure, in like the creative works that we do, you know what I mean? So that's not lacking for us. So now we're looking at it from a different perspective, but that's a privilege in itself to not have to rely on this place for our community, Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a complicated conversation. I don't judge anybody for either one, but I do think that it is an implication of us beginning to push against some of the things, again, that no longer serve us and having conversations about how we can kind of progress better than the previous generations. Now, the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to some of the nonsense, I've saved like kind of the worst for last. We had this Fox News lawsuit, right? And you had Dominion Voting Systems suing Fox News for basically slander and the lies that they told on air when it came to the election and the alleged fraud and malfunctioning of the voting systems and all of this. And it seemed like Dominion Voting Systems was in this for the long haul. They were going to make an example of Fox. They wanted to take this to trial and get all of these people on the stand under oath and basically humiliate them into admitting that they were simply just, leading their base astray for the sake of ratings, right? And then 25th hour, literally the day that the trial is supposed to begin, we get the news that they have actually settled $787.5 million. Fox is ordered to pay Dominion. Now, it's not anything to bat an eye about. You're talking about almost $1 billion here. But in my opinion, when I saw that, I was kind of livid to a degree, because it was like, man, this was a chance for accountability. And once again, the world that we exist in, money surpasses everything. And now this really doesn't change much, because they can, certain things leaked out there, but obviously their base wasn't really affected by it. It wasn't as bad as it could have been. They're paying the money, and I'm sure it's going to hurt them a little bit. But at the end of the day, now they can keep on continuing on with their nonsense and parading as a real factual news outlet, poisoning the minds of people in this country and continuing to divide us. I saw you post about it on your story, and you were expressing some frustration as well. So, I'm curious for you, when you saw it, what were the feelings?
Yeah. We were having such a good conversation. I got God damn. Nah, man, you're right. It's like, this is why we have these conversations. This is why we question things. This is why we communicate in this way. This is why, because you literally have privatized news stations, which, let's think about it. They're privatized. They make money. They have to make money. They have to give money to their stockholders. They have people invest. They have to profit from this. So you need traffic. So it's not like it's government funded and it's just like a cap. No, they're trying to make profit. So how do you make profit? Fear, dysfunction, anger, all those things. It's like, and this is something so many people have known forever, but the mass majority don't, or they choose not to see it. But it's like, it's already made such an imprint on society since like the beginning of TV. I mean, you got to think of like, how long have we been digesting this stuff before the internet? And everyone watching the same channel or the same thing, and just over and over and over again. And this is just what it is. So it's this whole bigger thing where, like, I remember during the last couple elections, actually, like, I used to be super in like politics when the election season came around. I did whatever I could do to volunteer, to participate, to help out with campaigns, whatever. And then I went on like a low information diet. I've been on a low information diet since these last couple of elections. And people are like, Eli, oh my God, how could you do that? You don't care. And that. I'm like, no, this is my own mental sake. And half of it is just fear mongering garbage on both sides.
Absolutely.
So like, it's particularly with the Donald Trump, his ratings were insane every time this man was on TV. If you hated him or you loved him. So both sides were giving him all the airtime. So then on top of like fake garbage that we've just seen with this settlement, it's like, you wonder why we're in this situation that we're in. You wonder why like people are so divisive and divided. You wonder why. It's like, and it just, oh God, it just sucks, because like when you're young, you're like, I'm gonna change the world, and then you get to the 30s, and I'm like, you're smoking a cigarette, and you're just like, this is the game. And you have to live with the fact that like, I will not outlive this system changing, unfortunately. And that's you could do work, and we can talk about it and do certain things, but you weren't going to outlive the system. And it's like, man, us as a species, just God, we suck in these certain ways. Like, oh, it just so many things wrong with this. I could rant about. But at the end of the day, it's like the red blue thing. It's theirs for a reason. Again, the more we could point at each other, is less fingers pointed at them, and that's the last thing they want. So it's all design, man. It's all design. This is what it is. But
I share your frustration, and I've actually gone on a lower diet as well of political information. I've been on a hiatus from my TV show that I was doing, where I was talking more politics, and it's been a blessing.
That's what I'm saying. And also, if the world's gonna end, someone's gonna tell me about it.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, I don't have to read a 4-page article about the world's gonna end. Someone's gonna tell me that the world's ending.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, I've been definitely just sort of following what I need to follow to sort of be informed, but not diving into it as heavy as I have, because it will drive you crazy. Because, you know, it is incredibly frustrating to think that like the shit that moves the needle is literally the worst parts of human society. And that's what we tune in for. You know, it's like even before, you know, you had all these news networks break off and become polarized, you had the 10 o'clock news would always lead with the most horrific and gory story, right? Because they knew that was like what was going to be sensationalized. It's going to get everybody's attention. And that sadly is like what, as a culture, we deem to be entertainment or worth our time or what motivates us to do something. And these politicians know it. At the end of the day, they just want power, and they're going to do whatever they have to do to maintain it. And for them, they know that keeping their bases, you know, in fear or angry at the other side is what's going to maintain that power and give them the best chance at, you know, holding a title in office, you know, and I agree that it does happen on both sides. I mean, I was watching when Trump was flying in, you know, for his arraignment, and MSNBC is commenting on the private plane that he was flying in on, how it was old. And usually people with that, you know, a plane that old, billionaires wouldn't be flying around in that. They put it out of, you know, commission. It's like, who the fuck cares about the plane that this guy flew in on? I'm tuning into the news, and you're like doing a hit piece on this guy as if you're like TMZ. It does like it just doesn't make any sense. And yes, I think one side is inherently worse because they're literally willing to destroy democracy to get what they want and ultimate power. But yeah, man, I think this is all just like a microcosm for the way the world works, where like this company, you know, was like, oh, we're gonna stick it to Fox News, and then all of a sudden they saw that dollar signs would immediately fly, and they're like, you know what? I think we've done enough here. You know, we're fine with just kind of half-assing this process, and let's go collect our check. And yeah, I mean, you can definitely kind of beat your head against the wall and be really frustrated. And you know, I refuse to kind of give up. The optimist in me refuses to give up, because I do think, as a culture, as much bullshit as you see on social media, as much as it is the sex and clout chasing, blah blah blah, whatever, you know, wealth bait thing you can do, there also has been this sort of revolution to a degree where things like wellness and, you know, real conversations are having a movement and do have a niche, and it's not just this tiny, you know, sector of people. It is, you know, people of all walks of life recognizing sort of what's important. So that does give me faith. But yeah, man, when you see shit like this, it's also just kind of like, I just want to go in my cave and fuck it, man. Like I'm tired. You guys win. Go ahead.
No, totally. And I'm still a participant too when like stuff pops up or whatever, or like, you know, my following, I'm going to share this like piece or whatever. But it's definitely to the point where like, oh, next election's around. All right, let me grab my sword, put a cigarette in my mouth, you know, like get a Red Bull. Like, oh my God, I have a 5 o'clock shadow going. I'm like, let's do this shit again. Yeah. But like, I find like, this is like, it's so many different things wrong with society. Like, like the fact that lobbying exists, or privatized prisons, or you know, privatized media or whatever. All this is a big old mess. But then there's like, again, like I love this conversation pieces because it's all kind of formulates to that hope of progress, and it's so painfully slow. But you know, the fact that like even when it was in 08 and not much change, but like Obama became president, like it took, you know, a lot. It took a culture shift for that to happen. You know, women being taken way more seriously in the presidential race. Kamala, AOC, like these people that are different, or even like the idea of student loan debt being like canceled. Like, remember that was just no, like that's not even a conversation. And now it is. You know, or free college. That was never even a conversation. And now it is. So there are progressive ideas though that are moving, but God, the machine just makes it turn so slow, and it takes all of us to keep moving. It's extremely slow. But that's what we talk about, the bigger impact in community, right? Because there's some things that we may not see, but it's for the next generation to see it and experience it, and then keep it going forward in that way. So it's very frustrating, and I hope there's at least some people that are aware of it. But I also wanted to hit on what you said about social and why this big TikTok ban's a thing. They like, whoever's listening, I saw a TikTok about this. They were like, this is why they want to ban TikTok. And essentially what they say is like, go on Instagram right now and type in Paris. And then he did the green screen effect. And Paris on Instagram was like cute little influencers and baguettes and and then type in Paris on TikTok. You type in Paris on TikTok, it is riots and fires and conversation pieces, and like because they raised the retirement age, so people are pissed in France. So they talk back. It's just a totally 180 of conversation and information, and it's scary to think that this is a U.S. company that it only shows this very filtered version of something versus this other one that's not U.S. based that is showing everything. Right. So it's interesting to see the fear of the internet, this new realm of media, being with this TikTok ban and the legislation bill connected to it, and all the monitoring and the things that they want to filter out attached to this thing. What that attributes to this new form of media, because now we're not going to get the full story of what's happening in the world or even in our own country. Right. And this is like the one frontier where we have a little more freedom with it. So it's a scary future, but yeah, we have to keep being active participants. You know, in the freedom of speech.
No, absolutely. I think you hit on something where I think we have to keep in mind not all of this work that we're doing is for us in this lifetime. You know what I mean? It is for the future generations to come, you know, and again, I think the Obama thing is a great sort of example, you know, because everybody that voted there then set the stage for someone like Hillary to become a viable candidate, you know, and eventually that will happen one day too. But again, it was all of these generations kind of doing their part little by little. And eventually we saw, you know, real change that we want to see. So I think that's a great way to kind of stay optimistic and know that the work you're doing is important. And I think the last thing, when you bring up things like TikTok, it is really interesting. And I think there are a lot of vested interest in it not being around anymore because it cuts out the middleman in an extreme way that I think scares the shit out of every corporation out there who does any sort of business whatsoever, right? And I'll speak to myself in like the media industry. Like, if you build up enough of a following on that platform, do you really need to take a salary from a radio conglomerate, a media conglomerate, whatever it might be? You can create your own platform, be your own boss, be in control of that, and take 100% of whatever revenue that you make while not having Big Brother breathing down your neck, you know? And that is amazing to me. I mean, we've seen it with the music industry, all that has happened via TikTok, but even before that with things like YouTube and the way that you have independent artists being able to tour the country now and have sold out shows, like that's all unheard of in previous generations. They needed a machine behind them to create that sort of awareness. And yeah, I think it scares a lot of these big companies who have been profiting off of the smaller individual and taking advantage of them, particularly speaking to like the entertainment industry where they tell you should just be happy to be here. You know, like now those days are kind of getting flipped around and a lot of these people are incredibly scared about that. And again, even to your point about the news, I don't have to watch an hour-long fucking, you know, MSNBC segment to get the updates. I can scroll through a couple of TikTok posts, find the important news thing from the day and move on with my life instead of them rehashing breaking news every 2 seconds and pretending like they're telling me something new when it's the same, you know, talking heads just regurgitating different information from, you know, quote unquote experts, you know?
Exactly, man. No, totally. Yeah. I was just going to say, like, with that, it's like, man, there's just so much like freedom that's there, and also the ad dollar. So like Meta is getting their like asses kicked because like TikTok's taking all the ad dollars. Like they have like what the highest acceleration of any app in the history of whatever. Like during COVID, everyone jumped on it, and Instagram and Google can't figure out the algorithm. They can't compete with them. Right. So it's like TikTok is just taking all the money away from them. So now they put the lobbying dollars with the politicians to try to shut this down. Right. And you know, everyone's for it. Yeah. So it's like, you just got to question it. You got to think about it, like, what's going on? Because I'm a product of that. Like, I don't have to. I was able to quit my job and be able to do like personal wellness, personal development coaching. Yeah. Like I work like the BIPOC community in terms of mental health and their small businesses. And I get to help people, and I don't have to have a boss. I don't have to like worry about XYZ. I get to focus on my film and TV career. Right. So it's like, And I'm a man of color that grew up like not with money or, you know, I'm not a Nepo baby or anything, but this digital platform was able to get me to this point. So I'm a huge advocate for the digital space. And no matter, because like in no point in history has there been something so accessible that you can connect with anybody. And it doesn't matter how much money you make, where you're from, what color you are a DMO connecting with somebody. Like it's absolutely, it's a very exciting frontier. So I'm a huge advocate for this digital space for everyone. So it's wild.
Yeah, man. And last thing I'll say on it, because I know we can keep going for like hours on this, but like
I know, I feel like we can just keep going. Right?
We really can. But dude, I mean, you, regardless of how you feel about these people, you look at somebody like a Jake Paul who has revolutionized the world of boxing merely because of his internet fame that he's developed, essentially, right? Like, to me, that I love that disruption, you know, because he doesn't need the machine behind him anymore. Instead, the machine needs him in order to fucking survive now, you know? Or Mr. Beast, you know, who like now has, you know, Mr. Beast Burger and all these other fucking things based upon a dude who was just making YouTube videos. Like, now he is his own brand and operating on a far larger scale. I just think things like that are so beautiful. And I think that for as much shit as social media has, you also have to look to things like that and be like, man, we live in this incredible world where you are literally one post away from hypothetically 1 million people seeing what you do and somehow latching onto it or relating to it and supporting you and what you want to do with your life. So I just think that's an amazing thing that obviously is going to scare the fuck out of older generations. Now, we talked about the heavy stuff, man. So we're done with that for today's show. We're going to quickly kind of touch on some positive things that have happened in our community for our Mi Gente segment. Mi Gente. All right, so I quickly want to touch on a few positive things that have been happening in our community. And I don't know, this just brought me so much joy when I was watching the sketches and I was just seeing it, you know, it happen where you had Ana de Armas as the host of SNL. You had Karol G as the musical guest. And they were doing a bunch of different skits. And then you had Marcelo Hernandez involved, who, to me, when I look at SNL and I'm seeing what he's doing, bringing that Latin voice, it just makes me so fucking proud to watch these things happening. And it to me kind of came all full circle when you had the three of them together doing these skits, doing, you know, Latin-centric topics, and it's still being funny, people still being able to relate to it. I think it breaks a lot of the old mold of like, our stories aren't universal, you know, therefore we can't, you know, appeal to a major audience. And then even somebody like Karol G kind of taking that platform. And she has the shirt on that is like, you know, basically saying no Photoshop. And she was talking about how she was Photoshopped on the cover of, I think it was Mexican GQ, if I'm not mistaken. And she was talking about how they Photoshopped her face and her body. And she was calling that out and kind of rallying against that, you know, in terms of obviously body positivity, which is something we definitely need in the world of social media these days because of the negative things that it brings. But in general, just seeing this was absolutely incredible to me, and we continue to kind of see these inclusionary things happening on these big platforms, and our culture is just knocking it out of the park when given these opportunities.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's so cool to see, like, in the entertainment field too. Yeah, like, to seeing it all over in entertainment, and obviously, like, we're not where we need to be. We always hear about like the percentages, and we're like less than 1%, and then like in terms of directors and actresses and opportunities and projects. But man, these are wins that, like, I remember like being a kid, a teenager, never seeing anything like of my identity or my culture or anything in like main tabloids.
Right.
It's either like white or black. That was it. It's like, and even the black like TV or movies were less than. Right. It's like the quintessential was always like white people, like whatever, in terms of media in any capacity. And then as a Latino who grew up in the States, like I was like second generation, third generation. Yeah. You know, it's like all the only content I had of anything was like Telemundo, Univision. That was it. So like I just watched Fresh Prince and all those other things. That's what I related to. And it's so beautiful to see that there is a space for us, or it's being recognized. Just the American Latino experience, like the Latino experience in general, in different forms of media. So there has definitely been a jump of progress, and I cater that back to social media as well, where people are putting their stuff out there. They're complaining about stuff, you know, like companies are in like their white guilt era, so we can take full advantage of all of that.
Yep.
But it says a lot about like what that ripple effect turned into of all of us wanting more, demanding more, consuming different things. And it's amazing to see like all that come to fruition. So it's like very prideful. And then the fact that like these Karol G and like these different figures are having these conversation pieces. Because it's one thing just to participate. We all love J-Lo. We all love J-Lo. But she was participating and trying to fit a mold that was there before her. Where these other artists, and people are shaking it up. They're not only being participants, they're breaking the mold and having conversations and creating new frontiers, which makes me just even more proud to see that. So it's like, it's amazing. It's one thing to be a participant, it's another thing to be a change maker in that space. And that takes balls. So really cool.
Absolutely. To go beyond just being happy to be in the room, but now to make sure that when you're in the room, somebody's listening to what you're saying is a whole nother step. And I salute people who do that. I mean, obviously Bad Bunny's been one of those people as well. And, you had Coachella this last weekend. Obviously this weekend is weekend 2, but Bad Bunny headlining, the first Spanish speaking artist to headline Coachella. And in general, you had so many Latin artists represented, from Becky G to Kali Uchis, so many different people. And also, the last kind of stat I want to throw out there was you had this report that was released last week by the Recording Industry Association of America. And it shows that in 2022, Latin music revenue exceeded $1 billion for the first time. And it saw a 24% annual increase, outgrowing the broader industry. So this is the fastest growing sector of the music industry is the Latin market. And man, like, who would have fucking thunk it, man? I talk about this all the time, but like, I remember the Mark Anthonys of the world had to sing in English in order to be accepted and cross over. And now Bad Bunny is a pop artist singing in Spanish and proving the fact that like good music is good music. Doesn't matter if you speak the language or not, like quality music will translate to anybody. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to see.
It's amazing to see, bro. Like that's the product of the machine not dictating like what we listen to or what direction we go to, right? It's like we attract what is good. We find it, people share it. It's community-based music, and the dollar shows. And I was gonna say, we made it because Bad Bunny's with Kylie Jenner now, so that's how you know.
Kendall Jenner.
I'll piss so many people off. All your followers are gonna turn this off right now and be like, "Oh my god, what the hell?" But no, it's like we made it, Papa. We made it. No, but it does say a lot. And that's what I love with the internet and the space and the people being able to share more and digest more and discover more, and people like the world being smaller. Like we get to, I don't know. It's a beautiful thing, man. Because I grew up not seeing it or ever thought that it could be a thing.
Sure.
So like me, even as a filmmaker, I remember my early films all had white actors, and I'm like, why am I doing this? It's because I'm trying to be successful, and that's just what I see.
Yeah, you're programmed almost without realizing it.
Exactly, we're programmed. We all are. So it's so cool to see all this, and the younger generation coming up to be able to normalize, what we shifted. So it's like it's so just inspiring to see. It's just so inspiring to see just a Puerto Rican on stage, and all the good seats are a bunch of white people from suburbs, listening and speaking in Spanish. It's something there, but it's I hope that those dollars and numbers translate to the betterment of all of us and us as a culture and society, and to be taken seriously and to have a seat at the table in all walks of life, really.
Absolutely.
Because it's like just being Puerto Rican, man. That's the one thing I love about us is like we are just this tiny island that has been just ripped apart over and over and over again. That's been burned in like Phoenix from the ashes. Like we rebuild and create culture, and not this little island that made an impact around the freaking world. There's like people around the world like shaking their asses to Afro beats from our island. Yeah, that is wild, bro. It says so much about who we are as people. So I don't care if you work in a cubicle or you work at Chipotle or something, be proud of yourself. Like you are from a lineage and a culture that is unshakable. No matter what the machine does to you, we still come out on top. And Bad Bunny being Kylie Jenner is a product of that. That's a beautiful thing, everybody. be all inspired and happy about that. Just kidding.
Yeah. For the record, we're kidding. I can't get behind that statement. But I get this sentiment though, because it's not about gaining white approval. It's the fact that I can listen to Justin Bieber without thinking twice about it, right? With just being like, oh, is it a good song or not? And not having any other questions about it, right? Yeah. But people have always had a million and one different reasons why they couldn't sit down and listen to a Latin record, right? And give it a chance. And now that has been completely deleted, where you're having people who aren't of the community, aren't of the culture, being able to genuinely just look at it for what it is. Is this good music or is it not good music? And that right there is growth. That is inclusion. That is all the diversity, programs that we're trying to enact. Like, that's the best case scenario for it, right? And that is, I think, the beauty of it. And yeah, to your point, the fact that somebody like Bad Bunny from a small town in Puerto Rico now found himself operating in the same circle of like the Kardashians. I mean, for what it is, that does also just say something about like how big this whole thing has gotten, that he is now literally one of the most famous people on planet Earth, if not the most famous person at the moment on planet Earth. And again, fame doesn't matter, but again, it's that recognition that this guy from this small island, like you said, that has been through so much shit and there's been so many barricades placed in front of us, has now, graduated to that mountaintop. That's something to be proud of.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's like, yeah, it's just, I hope that this is because that's the thing, Machine's scared, bro. Like,
absolutely.
You remember like early hip hop, like they wanted to divide that, segregate that. Black kids listen to hip hop rap, white kids listen to rock. And they knew that what the future was going to be. And they knew how big hip hop was going to be. And that scared the hell out of them.
Absolutely.
And guess what? It was inevitable before those worlds blended, and everyone, now hip hop is just the standard of pop culture.
Absolutely.
So it's like, and that those old executives, their granddaughter, blonde, blue-eyed granddaughters are at, a freaking concert, listening to hip hop stuff. And I hope, the dollar and this era transitions to just a brighter, more inclusive, beautiful future for our community as well. Because like, as much as they want to keep us separate, it's inevitable that we're out here, it's successful and it's beautiful. So
100%, man. So, I mean, let's now get into all that you're doing. I mean, because you're involved in a lot of amazing projects and we really jumped into a lot of shit. I always enjoy catching up with you. But I know you have the film that you made, Bodies Will Tumble and Roll, that's doing like the whole festival circuit. I know that right now that your focus is also this coaching company that you've started called Self-Hype Coaching. So let's kind of focus in on that a little bit. I mean, the creation of this brand and kind of your methodology behind it.
Yeah, man. So I've my passion is personal wellness, personal development. I remember back in 2016, I had a mental health breakdown, and you look at me on social, I was making multi-million view videos every week. Like I accumulated over views online. I was working at one of the hottest companies, digital companies at the time. And you would see like, oh man, this guy has it all figured out. But I didn't grow up with mental health. I didn't grow up with personal wellness. That wasn't normalized for me, being Latino in that community. And so I grew up in my life just in survival mode and trying to build all these things. And plus social media being so overwhelming, I just wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't loving myself, and I broke. And I had a panic attack. I thought I was going to die. But that was the day my life changed, because I started getting into personal wellness, personal development. Spent years jumping into it, and my life completely changed and shifted. But one thing, being in this world, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me. Yeah. And it was really inaccessible and very expensive and like all these different things. And I'm like, this is all stuff that should just be normalized in our community. Like the topics of mental health, the breathing exercise, the journal prompts, the visualization, the manifestation, like all these things that these 7-8 figure change makers have done and have always done. Yes. And we chalk it up to all that white people stuff. Right. So I'm like, I adopted self-hype because it's self-help for the culture. So what I do is I create digital programs designed for personal wellness and for small business owners to use the digital space to help them with their mental health. So I like to say like 8-week boot camps of just digital experiences for the BIPOC community. And it's just normalizing personal wellness. So it's like, I don't care if you're going through a heartbreak. I don't care if you're in a big life transition. I don't care if you're just like, enough is enough. I'm ready to take big action in my life right now. Yeah. This is what's for you. And this is what I've been wanting to build, because I want that self-hype to be the premier brand for that BIPOC community. It's catered to everyone, but cater to them and have them see that space as a trusting place that they could see themselves in. So if it's, different business owners that came from humble beginnings, personal wellness coaches, holistic coaches, whatever it is, this is that space for you where you could feel seen. Because I would see these people and, my dad was a millionaire. I've been rich for like 30 years, 40, 50, 60 years. And I'm like, but you don't see yourself with these people. So it's like, that's why I said it's self-help for the culture, and it's just normalizing and breaking generational chains. So I've been doing it actually since 2019. We relaunched this year, and it's been a beautiful experience. So, but yeah, I'm promoting that right now. I'm jumping back into the coaching. And yeah, we're starting May 8th. So I'm really excited to get going with it again. It's been a beautiful gift. Yeah.
No, that is beautiful, man, because I think you're hitting on something that's so true. Like, I went away to a personal growth retreat called the Hoffman Process. I think might have been a year and a half ago at this point. And it was an amazing experience, and everybody was incredibly nice and warm and open and all of those things. But 90% of them were white people. I was the only Latin person. There were no Black people. And as you begin to get to know everybody, majority of them are coming from the tech world, where they're extremely wealthy. They are angel investors, and they're talking about living. Oh, I'm living in my Denver house now, but we might go back to the Boston one later. We're figuring that out. They're doctors or whatever it was, And I was like, fuck, none of these people I can relate to on a person-to-person level as far as our background goes. Again, beautiful people, but I also questioned and saw this would be so beneficial for anybody from my community, but the barrier to entry is so high and so inaccessible. And on top of that, when you talk to those people who work in like tech and you're like, oh, how did you hear about this? How did you find out about it? Oh, I had a friend of mine who went away for it and he said it was amazing. And literally that's what it was. Like, people just sort of recommending it to one another. And it's like, yeah, we're not having these conversations in my community. You know what I mean? There's not somebody recommending some growth retreat or some experience that they had as far as wellness or anything like that, or even therapy for the most part. Traditionally, we've kind of been very tight-lipped about that if we do decide to go and get a therapist or things like that. So yeah, it is an issue. And I love that you're kind of making that a priority for yourself. And it's something that I am as well. And like, we need as many of us as possible to be like normalizing this, because other people who are doing very well for themselves are seeing benefit in it. And we are again being left out of the conversation in a different way now.
Exactly, 100%. And I'm a product of that. I didn't come from money. I know what it's like to put your dollar towards something that is personal, that you can't see or touch or hold.
Right.
And it's shifting your brain and investing in yourself. Yeah. Which is not an idea, because us as our culture, it's been survival mode. We got to pay the rent, we got to do X, Y, Z. So I make it accessible as possible, where it's like, listen, I'm like Target. 100% refund policy. If at any point you don't think this is worth your time in the entire program, get your money back, no questions asked. Yeah. And I've been doing this since 2019, and 0 people have asked for their money back, because a lot of people that I'm working with, it's their first time doing stuff like this. So they have no idea. So I want them to experience it without the fear of, that lack of, or I can't do this, or I need to put my money towards somewhere else. And they dive into it and be like, holy crap, this changed my life. Yeah. And now I want to do more. Now I want to dive in, and now I want to do it. So that's really what it's all about, is like bringing these people, and they could tell their friends, like, yo, this is worth it. It is worth investing in yourself, because that's how you make more money at work. That's how launch your businesses. That's how you be the best mom you can be, the best sister you can be, the best human you can be. And again, break those habits, break those generational chains, and be the best person you can be for the people that you love. Absolutely. So I got plans, brother. This is just the beginning. So it's like, I'm doing self-hype con. I want you there. I want you on stage.
Dude, hell yeah. Let me know.
Speak to the people.
I'm there.
But yeah, we got things brewing. But yeah, it's been a beautiful gift to be able to help people. And yeah, we're relaunching May 8th. So that's the plan with that.
Beautiful, dude. Where can people find out more information? They want to work with you, find out more about the program. Where can they check it all out?
Yeah, man. Just look at my socials. I have links in the bio, or shoot me a DM. I'm real chill. Like we're all human. If I'm gonna be on social media, I'm not there to like show off my ass and things like that. If you are, good for you. But I'm here to help people. So
Sure.
DM me, ask me some questions. Let's have a conversation. I have free calls with everyone just to see what it's all about. So we connect and if you're a good fit.
Yeah.
But all my handles are it's Eli Vazquez, just across social, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all that. So click, check me out, hit me a link in the bio, or shoot me a DM. Let's chat. So
love it, dude. Well, listen, man, always great getting to connect with you, bro. I'm sure we'll do this again soon, hopefully. And I wish you nothing but the best with all this amazing stuff that you're working on, man.
Man, this was so nice. I needed this. I work from home. I'm just by myself all day. I'm like a house husband. This is nice to chop it up with another Puerto Rican. I'm like,
yeah.
And Seattle Puerto Ricans holler at me. Tell me where to go eat. Let's hang out. Let's
Please, yeah. Help this man out right now. He's a fish out of water. He needs some help.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you having me back. It means a lot. Thank you.
Of course, bro. Man, big shout out to my guest this week, Eli Vazquez. Always enjoy talking to that dude. He's a good guy, man. I think we are cut from a very similar cloth where we're just trying to inspire people and, trying to stay as informed as possible and give good information and all of the above. I really enjoy speaking with him. I'm sure he'll be back on the show sooner rather than later. Now, with that said, we did go a little long on today's show, so no Ask a Gringo segment. I promise we'll get back to it on Tuesday. I got a very special episode planned for the end of Financial Literacy Month, so I'll be actually including some of your questions for our guests that we have that week. So we'll do that. I'm really excited about it, so I'll be putting it up on my Instagram at DJ Dramos probably later today if you want to check that out and submit some questions. With that said, though, man, let's kind of tie everything we talked about today in a neat little bow in a segment we call Conclusion Stew.
Time for Conclusion Stew.
Man, so Eli and I really dove into these topics, so I'll keep this short and sweet, which I always enjoy kind of setting the tone for a conversation and then just sort of seeing where it goes and being open to where it goes. And I think that today was a great example of just two people having an enlightened conversation and on the same page for the most part. And I really enjoyed speaking with him, as I mentioned, and talking about this whole concept of the idea of LatinX and the term and all these different things. I kind of love what we landed on with the idea of, even if you don't love the phrasing of it, it is progression, which at the end of the day, all of us should be happy about, particularly when you talk about our community and how we have a lot of old world ideas around the LGBTQ plus community, around machismo culture, around the role of a woman, all of these different things that there are, toxic traits. We have to be real. There are some toxic parts of our culture. And even if you don't love this term, it is an attempt to progress and to move forward and become better than we were yesterday. So for that, I love it, and I'm not really, offended by it at all. I don't know why people get offended, but here we are. And whatever, you can continue to use whatever verbiage, I guess, makes the most sense for you, how you want to identify. But with that said, I don't think we have to tear people down because they're looking for a better way, And I think that's what LatinX is, and I'm for it, If this is what we're all getting behind, I'm for it. We should just stop having these stupid arguments that divide us for no reason whatsoever. Now, on the topic of faith and religion and all these different things, it is not surprising to me that our generation and the next generation are looking away from the church. There have been so many toxic ideas and just, I don't know, generational things that have been adapted because of religion, for generations, and things that are attached to the church that just don't rub me the right way. And, for me, again, I'm spiritual. I am not religious. I don't believe in, organized religion. And I think that there is space for all of us, and I think understanding what you're getting out of these different things that you are having faith in, right? I get why people are religious. I understand why people love going to church each week, the community that they get behind them, and the just positive energy that is shared amongst people who are doing something for the greater good of themselves and those around them, I think is a beautiful thing. I just don't necessarily think you need to be in the four walls of a church for that. But again, to each his own. I'm not shaming anybody. I think it also just, again, speaks to how the church has traditionally operated, and again, when you talk about closed-mindedness, when it comes to LGBTQ plus rights, the idea of purity, particularly when it comes to women, and I think also the idea that this was a religion that was forced upon us from our colonizers at the end of the day. When you talk about Christianity, and there's a lot of blood and pain behind that transition, but again, to each his own. I think we all have our own personal relationship. Religion is something that is incredibly personal, and whatever you feel, whatever works for you, whatever you believe, I don't shame you, nor do I, think any less or any more of you, depending on where you fall on that pendulum. But I do think that if the Christian church or the Catholic Church, specifically in this conversation, we're talking about, Catholicism, if we're seeing numbers like this declining, I think it's probably time for some sort of growth in the church if they want to create an environment that appeals to the next generation. Now, talking about Fox News and this settlement for $787.5 million, the settlement between Dominion Voting Systems and Fox News. It's a sad day for justice at the end of the day. I know this isn't a small amount of money, but it also kind of lets them off the hook. Even the statement that Fox News put out there was kind of just like this half-assed sort of version of what was happening and what the lawsuit was about. You know what I mean? So they are able to now save face in front of their audience, and it cost them a lot of money, but at the end of the day, they're probably going to make that back, right? They're going to get their advertising dollars, and they're going to get their views every night, and life kind of goes on. And it's frustrating because you kind of, as someone who wants things like this to be exposed and believes that, things like this could have been an olive branch into maybe getting to a place of healing in this country, it's frustrating that, as what usually happens, is money speaks louder than anything else at the end of the day, right? And listen, to a degree, I understand it. Dominion Voting Systems is, they're not martyrs. They are not activists. They are a company. And they feel like their bottom line has been hurt due to this slander, and they want to be compensated for it. And I understand that. If there's a risk going to trial, that they may have not gotten any money, right? So I do kind of understand that now they've gotten to more of a calm place about it. But it is incredibly frustrating to feel like change was about to possibly happen, and the greed and power of money steps in the way again. But I think, something that brought me peace while I was talking with Eli, was the idea that we have to be making moves with the intention or the mindset that it's bigger than just us, and that what we're doing right now, what we're fighting for, what we're standing against, what we are using our voice and our vote for, it is not necessarily just for us and our generation. Of course, it has implications on that, but the bigger picture is what it means for the future. And when you keep that in mind, to me, it's a little bit easier to kind of swallow the pill of how slow everything really seems to be progressing. Because again, you think about all of the decades of work and activism and people using their vote, all the work that it took for Obama to be the first black man elected as president, right? And how that then began to also open the door for someone like Hillary to become a real viable candidate. And now that opened the door for someone like Kamala to become vice president. And we're close, it feels like, to, having our first, female president. That doesn't even seem like it's an obstacle anymore, being a woman. So that is progress, that's change. And that was decades of work and decades of people using their voice. So we have to understand that we are a part of a bigger plan at the end of the day, and a bigger vision, and that the work we do now, may not yield crazy change in our lifetime, but it's a part of, again, the bigger change that we're all hoping to see. So that brought me a little bit of peace when thinking about this. And then, man, on the lighter side of things, honoring people from our community who are doing great things. So, hit this segment talking about Ana de Armas hosting SNL with Karol G as the musical guest, and it's just a beautiful feeling to be hearing Spanish spoken on normal television, and it's being done on our terms. And, I was talking about, I think his name is Marcelo Hernandez, him being on SNL, the beautiful representation that is, and like that skit that the three of them had together in the classroom. It made me feel warm and fuzzy inside, and it was a silly skit. It was like in a Spanish class. They're talking about food, and the fact that plátano de maduro was spoken about on the show and on SNL was just like, I don't know, warmed my heart. Little things like that. And there's a lot more work to be done. Obviously, so much more to go. But this is really breaking down those barriers and breaking down the nonsense that Hollywood has fed us, that, only white stories are universal at the end of the day. And again, you're looking at the music industry, right? We talked about how in 2022, for the first time ever, the Latin music revenue exceeded $1 billion for the first time. They're growing at a faster pace than any other industry as far as music goes, and any other genre of music. And you talk about Coachella, a gigantic festival that people look forward to every year. Bad Bunny being the first ever Spanish-speaking headliner. You had so many different Latin acts performing on there. Danny Lux, you had Karol G, Galiuchis. You had so many amazing acts on there represented in large ways on that stage. So just beautiful, beautiful to see. And it gives you hope for the future. And, us as Latinos, Latinx, however you want to put it, we just have to do our part and continue to support, because we have the numbers, we have the buying power, we have all of the above. We just have to stop getting caught up on the nonsense that divides us, particularly those of us who live in a place like America where, we are looked at as one and the same, whether you like it or not. The powers that be, the machine, looks at us and treats us as one in the same. So if that is the case, the only way to fight back and really have a voice and to get what we want is to come together as one and the same, and to really step into our power at the end of the day. That's me and my soapbox. But yeah, that's it for today. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Again, my book, Just Be, is out right now. justbe.nyc. Go pick that up. Go pick up some merch. Street Stoke Podcast, my other podcast, is available everywhere you find podcasts. Season 1, go binge it. And that's it. Everybody have a beautiful, beautiful weekend. I'll catch y'all on Tuesday with a brand new episode. So then, stay safe. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.